Have you ever dreamed about taking that one last big trip in retirement? Maybe it's that river cruise through Europe you always talked about, or the cross-country road trip you promised yourself when life slowed down. After all, you've worked hard, raised your family, paid your dues. Isn't this the time to finally enjoy life? But let me ask you this. Have you ever come back from a trip more tired than when you left? Or maybe you've noticed that traveling doesn't feel as exciting as it once did. It's not because you've lost your sense of adventure. It's because something shifts as we age, something that many people don't talk about until it's too late. Today, I want to have a real conversation with you. One that's not meant to scare you, but to help you make smart, safe decisions. Because while traveling after 70 can still be possible for some, there are serious risks that are often ignored until they show up at your doorstep, sometimes in the form of a health scare, an injury, or a financial hit that turns your dream vacation into a stressful nightmare. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 important reasons why traveling after 70 might not be the best idea, and why it's okay to rethink what joy and adventure look like at this stage of life. So, whether you've been planning a trip or just wondering if it's still worth it, I invite you to stick with me. You might see things a little differently by the end. Let's start with the first one, and it's a big one. Health. Our bodies aren't the same at 70 as they were at 40 or even 60. You already know that. You might be managing high blood pressure, an old knee injury, or maybe your energy just isn't what it used to be. That's normal. But when you throw in long flights, airport stress, different climates, time zone changes, and unfamiliar food, your body can go into full protest mode. Let me tell you about Robert. He's 74, a kind man with a sharp wit and a love for the ocean. He and his wife booked a 2-week cruise around the Caribbean. It sounded perfect. No hiking, no airports, just ocean views and buffet dinners. But on the 4th day, Robert started feeling tightness in his chest. At home, he would have called his doctor or driven straight to the hospital. But on a ship in the middle of the ocean, help wasn't minutes away. It was hours. The onboard staff did what they could, but he needed real care. Fast. By the time they reached the nearest port and got him to a hospital, precious time had passed. Thankfully, he survived, but the experience shook him and his wife. What was supposed to be a relaxing escape turned into one of the scariest moments of their lives. And here's the part that surprised him most. His regular health insurance didn't cover care outside the U.S. Uncho. They were left with thousands of dollars in medical bills. The truth is, even a minor health issue like dehydration or altitude sickness can become dangerous when you're far from home. Seniors are more susceptible to infections, to heart strain, to heat exhaustion, and the older we get, the longer it takes to bounce back. Something that might have been a mild inconvenience in your 50s can land you in a hospital bed in your 70s. And it's not just the big emergencies. Long flights can increase your risk of blood clots, especially in the legs, a condition called deep vein thrombosis. Sitting for hours in cramped seats is hard on anyone, but especially those with arthritis, joint issues, or circulation problems. Even navigating a large airport with heavy bags or finding a bathroom in time during a layover can turn into a source of stress instead of excitement. So, before you pack your bags, please talk to your doctor, get a full checkup. Ask honest questions. Can my heart handle a flight this long? What happens if I get sick overseas? Are my medications legal and available where I'm going? These conversations might not feel exciting, but they could save your life. And while we're on the topic of health, there's another piece to this puzzle that often gets overlooked. Germs. Let's be honest. Travel exposes us to everything. Airplanes, cruise ships, buses, hotel remotes, buffet utensils, all shared by thousands of hands from all over the world. And while you might have a strong immune system, the reality is that our natural defenses weaken with age. A simple cold can turn into bronchitis. A stomach bug can leave you dangerously dehydrated. Just ask Susan. She's 78 and vibrant as ever. Loves trying new foods, especially when she travels. But during a long-anticipated trip to Italy, she enjoyed a fresh salad at a little cafe. The next day, violent food poisoning. What would have passed in a younger traveler as a 24-hour inconvenience landed her in an Italian hospital for 4 days. Your stomach isn't as forgiving at 70 as it was at 30. You may react differently to spices, oils, or even just unfamiliar water. Something as innocent as brushing your teeth with tap water can introduce bacteria your body isn't used to. It doesn't matter how clean the country is, if your system doesn't recognize it, it's a threat. Airplanes themselves are a petri dish. You're breathing recycled air for hours, often within inches of people who might be carrying germs you've never encountered. Flu, COVID, pneumonia, these are real risks, and the consequences are more severe as we age. You might recover, yes, but it could take weeks, not days. And it's not just the air or the food, it's what we touch. Public restrooms, elevator buttons, handrails, taxi door handles. If you use a walker or cane, you're constantly making contact with high-risk surfaces. You touch your aid, then touch your face. That's how it spreads. So what can you do? If you absolutely must travel, carry sanitizer, wear a mask in crowded places, and stick to bottled water. Avoid raw foods unless you're sure they're safe. Get your vaccines up to date and carry medications for stomach bugs, fevers, and respiratory issues. These aren't extreme measures, they're smart ones. Because when it comes to staying well, prevention is everything. Now, let's pause for a second. I want you to ask yourself this: is the trip I'm planning really worth the physical and mental toll it could take? Not every journey is bad, but not every journey is worth the cost either. Let's continue this conversation with something many people never expect until it's too late. Because while most people think about illness or infection, what often catches seniors off guard is how deeply exhausting travel can be. And I'm not just talking about being a little tired after a long flight. I'm talking about full body fatigue that lingers for days or even weeks and takes the joy right out of your trip. Michael, a 75-year-old retired teacher, told me about a trip he and his wife took to France not long ago. It had been on their bucket list for years. They booked the flights, mapped out the cities, and scheduled walking tours, dinners, and museum visits. But after the 10-hour overnight flight, followed by the chaos of customs, finding their luggage, and navigating a foreign train system, Michael felt like he had already run a marathon, and the trip hadn't even started yet. By the second day, he could barely keep his eyes open. His legs felt heavy, his thinking was foggy, and even a short walk to a cafe felt like too much. He wasn't sick, just completely drained. He didn't get to enjoy the museums. He skipped the wine tastings. Most days he just rested in the hotel, trying to get back to normal. And by the time he started to feel like himself again, it was time to fly home. Fatigue like that doesn't just ruin your plans, it affects everything else too. When your body is tired, your immune system weakens. Your balance gets worse. Your memory, your mood, your digestion, they all take a hit. It becomes harder to think clearly, make good decisions, or even stay on your feet. One of the biggest culprits is sleep. Traveling often means strange beds, noisy hotels, thin curtains that let in too much light, or time zones that confuse your body clock. And for seniors, even minor disruptions in sleep can lead to serious issues: high blood pressure, irritability, poor concentration, and in some cases, increased risk of heart problems. Jet lag is another beast entirely. You might adjust after a day or two in your 40s, but after 70, it can take much longer. And when your internal clock is off, your appetite suffers. You don't sleep deeply. You're more likely to fall. The whole trip can start to feel like something you need to recover from, not something that recharges you. Add to that the physical strain of carrying luggage, walking across terminals, climbing stairs at historic sites, or even just standing in lines for too long, and it's easy to see how travel becomes more of a test of endurance than a relaxing escape. Dehydration sneaks up too. When you're on the go, it's easy to forget to drink water, especially on flights, where the air is dry. And even mild dehydration can make you feel dizzy, confused, or lightheaded. That might not seem serious, but one bad step can change everything. Just ask Susan again. After her food poisoning scare in Italy, she spent the next few days trying to recover. But in that weakened state, she lost her balance stepping onto a small bus and took a hard fall. Thankfully, she didn't break anything, but the bruises and swelling made walking nearly impossible. She had to cancel half the trip and spent most of her days in bed, watching TV instead of seeing the sights. And unfortunately, not everyone is that lucky. Injuries are one of the most overlooked dangers of travel after 70. We don't always realize how different our balance and reflexes become. A stumble that would have been nothing 20 years ago can now lead to a broken hip or worse. Our bones are more fragile. Our reaction time is slower. And once you fall, recovery is long, painful, and often incomplete. I remember hearing about Susan's friend Margaret, also in her 70s, who had always dreamed of visiting Prague. She was in great shape, walked every day, had no major health issues. But while navigating the cobblestone streets of the old town at night, she tripped on an uneven curb and fell hard. She fractured her pelvis and had to be hospitalized overseas. That one moment not only ended her trip, it changed her independence forever. She went from traveling solo to needing a walker. All because of a single misstep. What makes it harder is that many older travelers assume that hotels, tourist spots, or transport services are fully accessible. But that's not always the case. You may find narrow hallways, staircases without elevators, slippery floors in cruise ship bathrooms, or tour buses with steep, narrow steps. Even getting off a curb without a proper handrail can become a challenge. And let's not forget how easily fatigue feeds into accidents. When you're tired, you're less aware. You move more slowly. Your feet don't clear the ground like they used to. Your focus slips. That's how spills happen. Quiet, sudden, and damaging. So what does this mean for someone who still wants to explore the world? It doesn't mean you have to give up travel completely. But it does mean that being realistic about your body and its limits can make the difference between a beautiful memory and a painful one. If you truly want to enjoy your time away, consider pacing yourself. Build in rest days, stay hydrated. Avoid long travel days that stack flights and layovers. Choose destinations with flat walkways, plenty of seating, and nearby medical care. And most importantly, listen to your body. If it tells you to slow down, listen. Because the most important thing you can bring back from a trip is not just a photo album. It's your health, your peace of mind, and your ability to keep living independently. Now, let's talk about something else that can sneak up on you and hit even harder than a bad fall: the financial risks that many seniors don't see coming until it's too late. Point. Because while falling or getting sick during a trip can be physically painful, nothing quite compares to the stress of seeing your savings vanish overnight. Point. And that's what happens to far too many seniors who travel without fully understanding the financial risks. Let's take William, for example. He's 76, a retired accountant who had spent years carefully planning his dream vacation to a tropical island. He did his research, or so he thought. He found what looked like a beautiful beachfront hotel online, complete with glowing reviews and professional photos. The price was just right, too good to pass up, so he booked it, paid in full, non-refundable. But when he arrived at the destination, tired from a long flight and dragging 2 suitcases behind him, he realized something was terribly wrong. The hotel wasn't there, not just closed or under renovation, it simply didn't exist. The photos were fake. The website was gone, and so was his money. He had to scramble to find a last-minute place to stay, which cost him double what he'd budgeted. That one booking mistake turned what should have been a peaceful, relaxing escape into a financial disaster. Scams like this aren't rare. Seniors are often targeted because scammers assume they're less familiar with online booking, more trusting, and less likely to push back when something feels off. And unfortunately, they're often right. But the risks don't stop at fake bookings. Even legitimate trips can come with costly surprises. Medical emergencies overseas? Your regular Medicare doesn't cover that. And unless you've specifically purchased a travel insurance plan with international coverage, every ambulance ride, every hospital stay, every surgery comes straight out of your pocket. Imagine this: you're in another country, unable to speak the language, and suddenly you need emergency care. A basic trip to the emergency room can cost thousands. If you need to be airlifted to another hospital, that's easily $20,000 to $30,000, if not more. Even if you have insurance, not all plans are created equal. Many seniors assume they're covered until they try to file a claim and learn that their plan only covers domestic travel or pre-approved providers. By then, the bill has already arrived, and so has the stress. Then there's the issue of trip cancellations. Life is unpredictable. A routine checkup could turn into a serious diagnosis, or a family emergency could force you to change plans. But airlines, hotels, and cruise companies don't always care about your reason. If you cancel too late, you lose the money. No refund, no credit. Just a painful lesson. And let's face it, after 70, your chances of needing to cancel at the last minute go up. Health issues don't always give us advance notice. That's why travel insurance with cancellation protection is so important. But again, not just any policy. You have to read the fine print. Make sure it covers pre-existing conditions, unexpected emergencies, and even trip interruptions if something happens after you've already started your journey. Beyond the big-ticket problems, there are little ways money slips through your fingers while traveling that add up fast. Tourists, especially older ones, are often seen as easy targets for overcharging. Taxi drivers might take the long route. Street vendors might accidentally overcharge. Your card might be skimmed at a restaurant or ATM without you even realizing it. You might not even notice until you get home and see a long list of charges you don't recognize. And when you're in a foreign country, resolving fraud can be slow and frustrating. Sometimes the money is gone for good. There's also the hidden cost of peace of mind. The stress of budgeting every meal, tracking currency exchange, tipping in a new culture, or worrying about your credit card working in a remote area. That's mental energy you may not want to spend. And after 70, that kind of stress weighs heavier than it used to. So what can be done? How do you protect yourself without giving up travel entirely? Start by being skeptical of deals that seem too good to be true, because they usually are. Stick to trusted booking platforms or go through a reputable travel agent who understands senior needs. Before purchasing insurance, speak to a real person. Ask them to walk you through exactly what is and isn't covered. Get it in writing. And if you decide to travel, make a financial plan just like you would for a big life event. Set aside an emergency travel fund. Alert your bank before traveling. Use credit cards with built-in fraud protection. Never carry more cash than you're comfortable losing, and be careful who sees your wallet, phone, or room key. Most importantly, don't be afraid to say no to a trip that feels risky. Because protecting your finances isn't about being fearful. It's about being wise. There's a reason we spend our younger years building security, so we can enjoy our later years in peace. If a single trip can undo all of that, whether financially, physically, or emotionally, it's worth asking, is it truly worth it? Now, I want to say something that might surprise you. Even after everything we've talked about, health risks, infections, exhaustion, falls, scams, I'm not here to tell you that you should never travel again. That's not what this is about. This is about awareness, about safety, about knowing your limits and making decisions that serve your life, not endanger it. It's about giving yourself permission to rethink what adventure means. Because travel doesn't have to mean boarding a plane or crossing an ocean. It can be as simple as exploring a nearby town, visiting a local museum, or taking a short drive to a quiet lake. Sometimes joy is found not in how far we go, but in how fully we experience the moment right in front of us. Before you book your next trip, ask yourself, is my body truly ready for this? Do I have a backup plan if something goes wrong? Is this trip adding peace or pressure to my life? If you can answer those questions with confidence, great. But if any part of you hesitates, that's your inner wisdom speaking. and it's worth listening to. You've earned this chapter of your life. Protect it. If today's message resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you had a travel experience that didn't go as planned? Or one that taught you an important lesson? Leave a comment below. Let's support one another with honesty and compassion. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Strong Elderly Life for more content designed to keep you informed, inspired, and thriving at every stage of life. Because here, we believe that growing older doesn't mean shrinking your life, it means living it smarter. We'll see you in the next video.